We are continuing today in our series. Remember, our annual series is a year of prosperous living, and we're going to be demonstrating that not only through your lives, but through our community, and see what happens in the next 11 and a half months, right? So we're playing with that all month, and we're starting out with the basic ideas of the science of mind, a book by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, and our theme this month is tools of transformation, because that's really a lot about what science of mind is, isn't it? It's tools of transformation, how to transform and expand our lives and have a greater expression of them. So today, our talk is invest in your future. Invest in your future. Now, Ernest Holmes tells us in this lovely little book that money making is a definite part of living. What do you think? Money making is a definite part of living. We've created this system of barter in our society, haven't we? Where we exchange talents for money, or we barter things back and forth. But we've got this exchange that we have created. Yeah. Have you ever heard someone say, or maybe you've said, I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by money. And I believe that can be true, and when we dig a little deeper in that and we start looking at it, we might bump up against some fears around money. We might bump up against some fears about what money means. I'm not responsible with money. I'm afraid of being responsible for it. Maybe my friends won't like me anymore if I have money. Some of those old stories can be in there, can't they? Some of those old stories. We're going to explore some of that today. But I would like to suggest that if God is all there is, which is what we teach around here, isn't money God too? And all the things that we exchange for money, those are all the divine ideas of the one that have manifested through us into creation. Remember this guy, my music stand? It was an idea before it was ever made manifest. It was in the unformed and the invisible before it became visible. So that's what all the material things in our world represent for us, are divine ideas. Divine ideas. So we need to think about really how we exist in our world today. And if we bring it into a first world problem, I hear that phrase all the time now, it's a first world problem, right here in Scottsdale, Arizona, we need money to pay the rent, put fuel in our car, pay for the car, buy electricity to cool our homes in the summer. Otherwise we couldn't live here, right? So we need that exchange of money in order to survive here in these lifestyles that we've created for ourselves. So there's this basic idea in science of mind that we live in a prosperous universe. You ever heard that before? We live in a prosperous universe. And if you were here last week, we were talking about the universal energy and the one mind, the one intelligence, and how your mind, my mind, our mind, the one mind is all one. And we also talked about a little bit about EM equals MC squared. Remember I gave you the theory of relativity and how it was all energy? Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit last week also. So if we are living in this prosperous universe and financial abundance and flow is our birthright, how come we're not all experiencing it? Right? How come we're not all experiencing it? Well, Ernest Holmes tells us that prosperity awaits our recognition and acceptance of it. Prosperity awaits our recognition and acceptance of it. Or in other words, your financial success already exists, but is waiting for you to see it and accept it as your own. Now, what if I told you that this weekend I went out and I opened a bank account in each one of your names and put $1,000 in it?
Yay.
Would you believe me? Would you believe me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, let's say you do believe me, but you don't take any action on it. You don't actually go to the bank and access the money. It has no value, just as if you didn't believe me. It has no value, right? Because you don't have access to it. So Ernest Holmes tells us that we've got this spiritual bank account that is filled with the abundance of good awaiting our recognition and acceptance of it. Just as if I had made that bank account for you, you've got to do something to go access it, don't you? I'm not giving you the checkbook. I'm not giving you the debit card. You've got to go do all those things. You've got to take some action. Presto Chicho. And so the same is true here. This principle of abundance suggests that the abundance of the universe is available through us if we believe, receive, accept, and take that action, right? Because we're choice. We are divine beings at choice. So we get to choose how we're going to show up, how we're going to experience life, what we're going to think about, what actions we're going to take, and whether we're going to accept this idea of prosperity, just awaiting our recognition and acceptance of it. It's up to us. So I think it's safe to say that many of us probably have some unmet desires around money. Now, this may be wanting to set up a college fund for your grandchildren or your children. It may be a vacation that you've always wanted to take. Maybe it's a new car or a new house. Maybe it's just being able to let go of your source of income right now to go do something else in the world. Something that is perhaps perceived as more pleasurable for you. Maybe a hobby you'd like to spend more time with, or volunteering in the community, giving back a little bit. Maybe it's some things like that. So how can we apply this principle to manifesting the flow in our finances for these unmet desires? Well, the first is we need to work on our thoughts until we believe that we are immersed in this divine intelligence that we talked about last week in the One Mind. Until we believe. We talk about belief a lot, but it's really critical that we get ourselves into that immersed belief alignment with that good and with that knowingness that we are part of that. And that there's a divine intelligence that operates as law. And this system of order and intelligence, this law, that this universe, I guess, that we live in, is intelligence. And it's, no matter what's going on, no matter what's going on up in the world of effects and all around us, it's what keeps everything sane. It's what keeps everything sane. The stars stay in the sky. The solar system and the planets stay put. The universe doesn't waffle around much. And our bodies keep functioning. We don't have to think about making our hearts beat and our brains function, right? So those are the things that is the universal intelligence in which we live. Those things that are stable, the seasons, the solstice, those things. So once we can align with that, we then know that when we know that we're of that stability, we've got that foundation, when we know we're of that and that one mind, then we each have this spiritual bank account. We have this spiritual bank account of prosperity simply waiting on us that we need to take action to access. So we declare that truth. We declare that truth and take action. And we speak our word. And we talk about the power of our word. And this week we've heard some words that had some power attached to them, didn't we? Yeah, created a ripple through the world, didn't it? And I have a whole talk around that we're not going to do today, but that's another talk. But when we recognize that, we speak our word around our college fund, our vacation, our home, whatever it is that we're speaking our word about, believing, accepting that that is it, that we are identifying with it. We're identifying with it. That we're worthy, we're receptive. We claim it. We claim it from the spiritual bank that we have an account in. It's a powerful statement to say, I claim my good. I accept it. Not, I wish it was mine. I wish I had it. Wouldn't it be nice if? But I claim it. I accept it in the oneness, the wholeness, and the knowing that it's already there for me. Just like this music stand was created in idea and thought first, it's there for me to claim. It's there for me to claim. So what we're doing is really writing checks, universal check against the spiritual bank account in consciousness. Now don't go out and start writing hot checks and say your minister told you to do that, okay? Because that's not the case. It's not the case. It's all in consciousness. Again, it goes from thought to form. We're working in consciousness. So all activity in consciousness starts in mind and that universal one mind. So key ingredient to our acceptance. You gotta give up something. Remember our monkey, how to catch a monkey? Had to give up something to get his hand free. We have to give up thinking it's impossible. We have to give up thinking it's unlikely. Yeah, I want that, but I'll never be able to afford that college fund for my grandkids. I'll never be able to get that new car. I'll never be able to own my own home. Those are affirmations, aren't they? Yeah, those are affirmations. And we have to let go of that. We have to give up thinking it's impossible. We have to give up thinking it's unlikely or regretting the past that it didn't come already. It's not there. We get stuck in the past. We get stuck in the past rather than being in this present moment, recognizing we live and move and have our being in the field of infinite possibilities. Anything's possible in the mind of God. Right? When we can get there and own that, then we can let go of the past. We can let go of the regrets. We can let go of thinking it's impossible. Ernest Holmes says, the essence of the all-surrounding universal mind becomes your experience according to the pattern that you choose. If you choose money, then money it shall be. So what pattern do you choose? What is the pattern of your thinking, the tendency of your thinking? Any of you ever done a stencil? You know, it's a cutout of letters, or maybe it's a vine pattern you're going to do in your house or something. Well, if you trace that vine or that leaf, and you pull the stencil away, you're not going to have an elephant, are you? No, because your pattern is of a vine. It's not of an elephant. And the same is true. What is the pattern that we're continually running in our minds that is out picturing then in our life? If we think we're running a pattern of a vine, we end up with an elephant, we don't have the same pattern. So we need to clean up our thinking, don't we? We need to clean up our thinking. So, with more about our prosperous and friendly universe, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Glenn. We're sharing the messages this month, and he's got some information for you on our...
We live in a powerful, rich universe. It is one that is always for us and never against us. It is one that doesn't take sides. It's one that doesn't help one but doesn't help the other. And this is all transforming, all-knowing universe. And as Jill said, we live in a prosperous universe. Earlier I was here early getting some things set up, and they were playing music outside in the hallway. And that Stevie Wonder song, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, and Yours was playing. That's a universe. It's signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Here it is. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, in our textbook, writes, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. Read that again. Our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which of itself is without limit. And as we know in this teaching, a principle is a truth that is unchangeable. So it's really our ideas and our thinking that makes it so or not. So the principle is unchanging. It is our thought that changes to it. We change for it. And Ernest Holmes writes in Basic Ideas that when we believe that good is yours, the universe will respond. There is a reciprocal response from this loving, prosperous universe to the individual mind. And it offers up to you what you would like. You know, in the class Tuesday night, I was talking about a little bit how I got into science of mind and got into the centers and things. And the very first metaphysical book that I read was a Wayne Dyer book. And there were other people, blessings to Wayne Dyer, who really inspired many people. You'll see it when you believe it. It was the first book that I read. I was like, wow, this is really pretty amazing that when I really believe something, really put the belief into it, that I will see it manifest. It's the outer manifestation of the inner thoughts. right? So that's really the first book that I read, and we have faith that we can manifest in this this plane here on this earth. So we must expect it. Holmes wrote of the true expectancy is the great test of faith. So we must expect it. We believe it, and we have this expectation of it and what we want to produce. Again, the outer signs of this inner belief. Now, to do this, and as we're doing this through prayer and action, we are actually meeting God halfway. And there's a saying that man steps up to meet God halfway. Has anybody ever been to the Sistine Chapel in Rome, by the way? It's an incredible place. I was there some years ago, and it is a holy room. When you walk in, you can feel this room. And on the ceiling, the Michelangelo murals, there's a image of God reaching out to touch Adam, to give life to Adam. There's one finger meeting another. And this is, of course, a metaphor, and it's essentially that God is reaching out, and we meeting God halfway, and God breathes life into us. The Psalms 59, when the Bible says, my God with steadfast love will meet me. My God with steadfast love will meet me. In the Bible, there's a wonderful parable of the prodigal son, which you may be familiar with. Ernest Holmes called this one of the greatest religious educations that there is. And of course, in the story, there's two sons living home with their father, and one decides to stay there in the father's house, while the other decides to go out into the world to do these human things of appetites and desires. And so the son goes off and spends his money and has a really good time, by the way. But eventually ends up broke. He ends up hungry. He ends up taking a job feeding the dreaded swine in the fields, they say. And to the even point where he was so hungry that he wanted to eat what he was throwing to the swine themselves. And so he kind of dawns on him like, this is not a good way to go here. So he decides to actually go back to his father's house. And it's very important in the Bible, it reads that when the son could not see the house, but the father saw him coming before that, right? There's a great metaphor in that also. So the father meets the son coming back in a great celebration, and he tells his people all those around him to put a new robe on my son, put a ring on his finger, new sandals. We'll kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a great party tonight. We're going to party down. That's what's going to happen. And it's a wonderful metaphor story. It really is. It's the two sons can represent the two parts of our soul. One that stays home with the spirit, the God within the Father's house. The other part of the soul does the human endeavors and can separate ourselves from the Father's house itself. Whenever it was written that the son became very hungry, that is a meaning that he was hungry for this knowledge, hungry to get back to the one which is truly who he was. So he comes back and the father says, put a new robe on him. What this means in a metaphysical sense is that someone's shedding the old coat for the new. It gives vitality to the skin again. They put a ring on his finger. It means that the son now has the power in his hands to do all these things that God provides. New sandals on the feet, and he has this new strength. He is walking on holy ground again. So all these are wonderful metaphors. So all the time we are always trying to get back to our Father's house. The welcoming is there. And again, the Father will see us before we see it, right? You're always there. There's a part of the textbook that I'll read very quickly about this. He's talking about the prodigal son. When the prodigal son, he returned to his father's house and was greeted with outstretched hands. So shall our experience be when we return to the world, which is perfect. There will be something that will turn to us. We shall behold a new heaven and new earth, not in some far-off place, but here and now. Act as though I am and I will be. The Spirit of truth will lead us into all good. This is the high ground to the fulfillment of our lives. It's a beautiful parable, isn't it? Especially when we look at it from a medical, physical sense of what these figures and what the story, really means. So Ernest Holmes, says that we need to fly into action. We can sit at home and meditate all day, but our legs will get tired, right? So we need to get going and do things. He writes, man should swing from inspiration to action, from contemplation to accomplishment, from prayer to performance. Now, what this means to me is that you may be wanting a new job that will bring more prosperity to you, and you may have to redo your resume. Right? That's putting that to work. We can pray on this. We can make these affirmations, and there's work that we can do in the meantime to help manifest what we have here. And maybe print up new business cards or going to a networking event. These are actual physical things that we can do that help us along. Ernest Holmes talks about also giving of service. He says you're putting all these affirmations and wants into the universe, and if they haven't shown up yet, to actually give of yourself in service. We have one of the organizations that we support is Vista del Camino, and I know they have all kinds of openings for people who want to give of service. One of them is they want people to come down and help people with their resume, try to get a new job. And this is work that we can do. And Susan Dale, our Community Connections leader, works with folks to bring people in to volunteer for Vista del Camino. This is giving of yourself to others. And there's a special beauty in that. Ernest Holmes writes that life is action, and that's putting life into action. I was thinking about this too. Did you all know that there's chaplains in airports? I didn't know this till not too long ago. Most major airports have chaplains. A lot of them are just wandering around the terminals. They're looking for people who need help. Some people may be in distress, maybe going home to a funeral or a memorial service. Some people who've missed their flight, missing their luggage. You need prayer then. So, and they also there for the airport employees also. And a lot of this work is volunteer work. I actually looked into this they have them at Sky Harbor, by the way. I looked into being one at Sky Harbor. A lot of this is volunteer work. This is work that loving, holy people are doing to give back to the community. And this is what Ernest Holmes is talking about as far as maybe if what you're wanting is not here right in the present moment, that we can take our time of service to be of service to others. And in doing that, you're moving the energy of work towards you. And you actually never know who you're going to meet in some of these things that you do. That will be very beneficial for you to increase your prosperity in your life, right? So kind acts, a beautiful thing. Holmes says that if you do this, you can depend on a spiritual response and concrete good. Pretty solid, huh? Concrete good. Rushing toward you to fill that empty space that the universe delivers. Let me quickly recap here. So we know that the universe is for us. It's a prosperous universe and receives our mental impressions back with our unfailing belief and faith in it. We meet God halfway. We return to the Father's home, and meaning that we stay in spirit. We act as though and I am it, right? The third is that we move from inspiration to action. We move from prayer to performance. We put this into action. And we are always being called to do this to help ourselves as we go through the affirmations and the prayers themselves. Sound good?
Yes.
Yeah. All this works. This really works. It is a prosperous universe. I want to bring Jill back up to talk about how we can develop a rich consciousness. Ready for that?
So have you ever heard the saying, money doesn't grow on trees? That was my father's favorite. Said it all the time growing up. And I remember when I was a little kid and looking. Like, maybe it does, right? No. But that's some of the programming that I had to overcome in my adult life. Because when you hear that as a little child, all through growing up, you have a tendency to embody it and maybe even believe it. So what are some of your limiting beliefs around money? Money doesn't buy happiness. You ever heard that one? Money is the root of all evil. God wants us to struggle. There's never enough money. I don't deserve money. I just lose it if I get it. I can't manage it anyway. It's too much responsibility. If I have money, my friends won't like me. Any of those resonate? Got your own maybe coming up, bubbling up to the surface? Oh yeah, I remember that one too. Yeah. Well, Holmes suggests that if you are to be rich in concrete ways, you must first be rich in consciousness and have the feeling of abundance. Rich in consciousness and have the feeling of abundance. And this really speaks to his core idea of change your thinking, change your life, doesn't it? Change your thinking, change your life. If we're to not experiencing that financial abundance, we have to develop that rich consciousness. We have to develop it. And this means that we develop habits of thinking, habits of speaking, and habits of being that originate in this abundance of the universe that we've been talking about, this prosperous universe. So we can move ourselves into that consciousness of richness, if you will. And there's some practices that we can use. We're all about practices and application around here. So the first one is think about your spending. Think about your spending. Is it something you do consciously? And I mean every penny. Every single penny that you spend. Is it something that you do consciously? Are you buying something that you would rather have than the money? If you're writing out your check to Arizona Public Service, APS or SRP, I would hazard a guess that in July, you're pretty happy to exchange that money for the cooling that you're getting in your home, right? Yeah, but do we think about it? Or do we go, oh my gosh, I can't believe how high my electric bill is this month. Must have been a hot one. Yeah, where's your focus? Where's your perspective in those moments? What is it, are you being joyful and happy in that exchange? And what a blessing it is to have that money to exchange for rent and food and electricity and Starbucks, right? I'm pretty happy when I exchange my $5 for a Starbucks latte. But if we pay with resentment, complaining, begrudgingly, we're kind of attaching that energy to the circulation of that money, aren't we? Because it's, again, we're playing in consciousness here. So we're attaching that negativity to that circulation as it goes forth into the world. And we're sending a message to the universe that says, oh, you don't like circulating money, so I just won't give you any more to circulate. Oops. That wasn't what I meant, right? That wasn't what I meant. So Holmes suggests that silently blessing our money, as you pay, write the check, use your credit card, your debit card, have a little blessing in mind, a little affirmation perhaps in mind when you do that, to be grateful for that circulation, to be grateful for having the bounty of that to circulate. My former CPA used to always tell me when I would sit down and grumble about having to pay taxes, she would go, honey, you are so blessed to have made some income that you have to pay taxes, that you get to pay taxes, and you made enough money to pay the taxes, right? So that was a nice little reminder to me to stop complaining, to be grateful. So once again, we're back to E equals MC squared, an exchange of energy. If you think about the gifts and talents that you were born with, that you now use in your daily life, perhaps to generate income into your life, you are exchanging those gifts and talents that you have with that employer for money. Would you agree? It's an exchange of your energy of talent for the energy of money. And then you're going to go forth and exchange that energy of money for something else. Power, car, rent, dinner, new dress, new pants, whatever it might be. It's all this exchange of energy in one form or another. In one form or another. So another practice to think about is your saving practice. Is it conscious? Are you saving? Are you saving out of fear? Are you saving for a rainy day? In preparation for illness, catastrophe, or something else? old age, perhaps? Or are you saving for that college education for your grandkids? Are you saving for that new house? Are you saving for something with consciousness attached to it that's going to bring you joy? Or are you just saving because you have to save? It's all about consciousness, isn't it? It's all about where we are in our perspective as we do everything in life. Not just around our money, but everything that we do is how we approach it and how we think about it. And what is that pattern that we're drawing in our life? What is that pattern that we're drawing in our life? So developing this rich consciousness today will pay dividends in the future. It's a worthy effort. It's a worthy effort to shift your awareness in a powerful way to move from the experience of not enough to the experience of more than enough. And I, again, came from that background of Depression-era parents. There was never enough. There was always fear. Money doesn't grow on trees. I had a lot of that programming that I've had to overcome. And this teaching has assisted me greatly in overcoming that in my life to live a more abundant and prosperous life. So I kind of know what I'm talking about. I'm happy to talk to you more about it. But these principles work if we work the principles. They truly, truly do. So I think we can see that our common theme here is that we are at choice is how we approach life. Is it half full? Is it half empty? Are you on the positive side or the fearful side? We get that choice. And coming together in a community like this, we get to support each other in that affirmative teaching that the science of mind is. So let's move into our practicing the principles today and see how we might be able to practice some of these prosperous ideas this week. Number one, recognize that the universal abundance surrounds you. And if you recall, again, last week, we talked that we are in, of God and surrounded by that universal energy, intelligence, the infinite wisdom of the one. We're immersed in that loving God. And as such, we're immersed in that creativity and intelligence as well. And we participate in that abundant universe. And if you question whether the universe is abundant, I suggest we look around at nature. Anybody ever been on a beach? Pick up a handful of sand? You ever count grains? Or maybe a teaspoon. Maybe a half a teaspoon. Maybe an eighth of a teaspoon. Maybe a drop. It's a lot of grains of sand, isn't it? And imagine that beach and all the beaches of the world and all of the sand. There's a lot of sand out there. A lot of sand out there. We also see it in the leaves on the tree, the flocks of the geese around town right now visiting from Canada, the oxygen, the sunshine, it's all here for us. We live in an abundant universe. Number two is develop your understanding of the responsiveness of the one mind. Look for ways to meet it halfway, as Reverend Glenn was talking about. When we turn to God, God has already turned to us. It's like the couple driving down the road. I've used that example where she's fussing about the other couple driving towards them, and they're sitting on a bench seat in the pickup truck really close together. And she says, we used to be that way. And he looks over and says, I haven't moved. And that's much like the divine. God hasn't moved. We sometimes scoot away. The power of your word, believing that it will manifest. Your word has power. And again, we see this in our world today, some of the words that we hear. We need to develop this rich consciousness, and we start where we are. Remember, we have 60,000 thoughts a day. We talked about that crazy number before. It's hard to keep up with those. They go pretty quick. But we can keep up with our mouths sometimes. That we talk a little slower than we think. And sometimes we can listen to ourselves. And we can hear our words. And we can hear what we're saying. And we can recognize the negativity. We can recognize the complaining. We can recognize the blame. And we can begin to change and shift those words. And you know, if you have a hard time listening to your own, just listen to your friends. They say enough crazy things that you can see why it's out picturing in their lives, right? Oh my gosh, they're complaining all the time. No wonder their life's miserable. Right? Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Number 4, declare without doubt or worry. Declare you're good without doubt, without worry. Focus on knowing that it is your divine birthright until you believe it. Until you believe it. Prosperity awaits our recognition and acceptance of it. Or say to yourself, prosperity awaits my recognition and acceptance of it. And when that one feels good, start saying, I recognize and accept my prosperity now. Say that with me. I recognize and accept my prosperity now. Yeah. Imagine saying that about 150 times a day. You'd start to believe it, wouldn't you? Life is action. Number 5. And I can't say it any better than Thoreau did. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Move your feet. Move your feet when those divine ideas come. Don't let the fear hold you back. Step through the fear. Work with a practitioner, work with Reverend Glenn or myself. Let's move through the fear into the action, into the inspired action that we're guided to. Into that inspired action. And see all of those intentions that we set 2 weeks ago made manifest in our lives this year. I know it for each and every one of us. So just as prosperity includes all the areas of our life, we talk about relationship and career and finance and health. Just as prosperity includes all of those things, we can see that holding our awareness in these higher realms of consciousness that we've been talking about all morning, it's to support and align the manifestation of our desires. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. And when we think or talk badly about anything, money, folks who have it, folks who don't have it, when we get upset by others' divine right to show up as they choose, moving into judgment, blame, and righteousness, we move into a poverty consciousness. We drop into a poverty consciousness. We're no longer in our rich consciousness. We forget that their words are simply the reflection of their consciousness, just like our words are a reflection of ours. So we have individual responsibility as the lights that we are. We have individual responsibility to keep our awareness shining brightly, to illuminate this world that has some dark corners in it sometimes. But that's our work. That's our work as enlightened beings, as knowing the light and knowing the truth and knowing these principles and practicing them is to shine our lights, to hold our consciousness in this higher realm. So I invite you to join me in doing that, to be the light, this year. So I'll close this out today with one last quote from the Basic Ideas of the Science of Mind, where he tells us, you have a perfect right to use the creativity of your mind to provide abundant finances for a fuller, richer experience in living. If you had any doubt, you have permission. So I thank you for being with us today and sharing the platform, this message with Reverend Glenn. I appreciate your assistance on this today. It's been wonderful. Thank you all for being here. And I would invite you to join me in prayer now as we anchor this conversation today in one of our affirmative prayers. So how good it is to go within and to recognize that there is only one power, one presence, and that power and that presence is God. It is life itself expressing through its creation. It is love and joy, it is peace and harmony, it is prosperity, it is abundance pressed down to overflowing, for it is the Father's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And I know in this moment that I am of that kingdom, that I am of that divine essence, presence, and intelligence, and that I'm a unique and individualized manifestation of it right here, right now. And as I know that for myself, I know that for each of us here in this room, that we are all individualized, unique manifestations of that one. Mind, intelligence, wisdom, prosperity, and love. So I speak my word. I claim and declare this day the abundance and prosperity of each and every one of us in this room, that it is our divine birthright, that each of us was absolutely born with a silver spoon. It is our trust fund that each of us was born with, that all we need to do is accept, say yes, and take action in the receptivity of it, through the divine ideas that come through us, stepping through our fear into the greater expression of who and what we are. And how grateful I am for this knowing. Grateful for the manifestation of the prayer, grateful for the abundance and the prosperity that runs through each and every one of our lives in this moment. So I just gratefully release this into the activity of mind and the action of law, knowing that it is done, it is so, and we affirm together by saying, and so.